Sup, homies? I'm just popping in. I'm going to introduce my friend. My good friend is going to be reading Mark chapter 6 to you. That's right. Let's get it popping, friends. Without further ado, give it up for my man Vince, friends. Hello. It's Vince. Coming to you from the portrait. Haven't figured out yet how to get out of here, but at least I'm 3D for now. If anyone can get me out of here, I solicit your help. I'll figure out how to pay you later. I'm sure you could sell this for a lot of money, though. Anyway, friends, we're going to get started with Mark chapter 6. Let's get a little closer here. Get your thinking caps on. We're going to get Van Gogh. Here we go. Right, here we go then. He, being Jesus, left there and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. And when the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astonished. I bet some of you right now are pretty astonished that this painting is speaking. Here we go. Where did this man get these things? They said. What is this wisdom he's been given? And how were these miracles performed by his hands? Isn't this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? And aren't his sisters here with us? So they were offended by him. And Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor, except in his own hometown, among his relatives, and in his household. He was not able, listen, he was not able to do a miracle there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. Does it say that he wouldn't do it? No. What does it say? It says that he wasn't able to do it. Why wasn't he able? It says right here in verse 6, he was amazed at their unbelief. He was going around the villages teaching. He summoned the 12 and began to send them out in pairs and gave them authority over unclean spirits. He instructed them to take nothing for the road except a staff, no bread, no traveling bag, and no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not put on an extra shirt. Now, if someone told you he was sending you out to go somewhere, what would you do if he said, but also don't take anything with you? These people were on foot, and he's saying, don't bring any clothes, don't bring any luggage, no money even. What was this doing? Why was he doing this? He was teaching them to truly, fully rely on God to meet all of their needs. This was a lesson in trusting God to provide, okay, and take care of them. So it says that he said to them, whenever you enter a house, stay there until you leave that place. And if anyone doesn't welcome you or listen to you, when you leave there, just shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them. So they went out and preached that people should repent. They drove out many demons, anointed many sick people with oil, and healed them. Now, King Herod had heard about it because Jesus' name had become well known. Some said John the Baptist had been raised from the dead, and that's why miraculous powers are at work in him. But others said it's Elijah. Still others said he's a prophet, like one of the prophets from long ago. And when Herod had heard of it, he said, John, the one I beheaded, has been raised. Because Herod had John the Baptist beheaded at the request of his stepdaughter, and because he was a threat. Anyway, so John's been beheaded, and now Herod is freaking out, being like, oh my God, John's been raised, the one I beheaded. For Herod himself had given orders to arrest John and to chain him in prison on account of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because he had married her. John had been telling Herod, "It's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." So Herodias held a grudge against him and wanted to kill him, but she couldn't, because Herod feared John and protected him, knowing he was a righteous and holy man. And when Herod heard him, he would be very perplexed, but yet he liked to listen to him. An opportune time came on his birthday when Herod gave a banquet for his nobles, military commanders, and the leading men of Galilee. And when Herodias' own daughter came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his guests. The king said to the girl, "Ask me whatever you want, and I'll give it to you." He promised her with an oath, "Whatever you ask me, I'll give you, up to half my kingdom." She went out and said to her mother, "What should I ask for?" "John the Baptist's head," she said. At once she hurried to the king and said, "I want you to give me John the Baptist's head on a platter, immediately." Although the king was deeply distressed because of his oaths and the guests, he did not want to refuse her. The king immediately sent for an executioner and commanded him to bring John's head. So he went and beheaded him in prison. He brought his head on a platter and gave it to the girl. Then the girl gave it to her mother. When John's disciples heard about it, they came and removed his corpse and placed it in a tomb. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. And he said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a remote place and rest for a while." I've been resting a long time in this painting. Anyway, for many people were coming and going, and they didn't even have enough time to eat. So they went away in the boat by themselves to a remote place. But many saw them leaving and recognized them, and they ran on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. Now when he went ashore, he saw a large crowd, and he had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And then he began to teach them many things. When it grew late, his disciples approached him and said, "This place is deserted and it's already late. Send them away so that they can go into the surrounding countryside and villages to buy themselves something to eat." I love this verse. In verse 37, Jesus said, "You give them something to eat." He responded, and they said to him, "Should we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give them something to eat?" He asked them, "Listen, how many loaves do you have? Go and see." I love this because they come. There's many people that will find out who are here. And the disciples, are using their natural wisdom to be like, it's getting late. We should probably send these people away. They're going to need to get something to eat. Without missing a beat, Jesus says to them, "You give them something to eat." Interesting. And then how do they respond? "Where are we going to get all this food? Huh?" And basically, look, the next thing he says, Jesus says to them in verse 38, "What do you have? How many loaves do you have? Go and check." We're going to get a lesson here about what to do and how, with perceived lack, and how to respond. And it says, when they found out how much they had, they said 5 loaves and 2 fish. And then he instructed them, have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. And so they sat down in groups of hundreds and 50s. There was a lot of people. He took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. He took the 5 loaves, what they had, and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and he broke the loaves. And then he kept giving them to his disciples to set before the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all. Everyone ate and was satisfied. They picked up 12 baskets full of pieces of bread and fish. And now those who had eaten the loaves were 5,000 men, not including the women and children, upwards of 10,000 potentially. Pause. This is how we need to deal with perceived lack. Just because we have lack in the natural realm, with what our eyes can see, right? With their eyes, they saw there's 5,000 people. We only have 5 loaves and 2 fish. Naturally, that's not enough to feed all these people, right? But who are we dealing with? Who is in us? Who's with us? As that was the same person that's with them, Jesus, right? And we need to see, what does Jesus do? How does he respond to a perceived need? Because this is what we should be also doing. So he does it, they see it as a lack, but he sees it as potential. He sees the potential with what they have. So he takes what they do have, and this is what we want to do. Take what we do have, offer it up to God, give thanks for what we do have. Don't speak lack, don't curse it and say it's not enough. This will never feed all these people. This will never feed our whole family. This is not going to be enough to take care of us. No, take what you do have, offer it up to God, give thanks for what you do have, and bless what you do have. And then look for an opportunity to give away what you do have. Because as you do that, it will be multiplied, right? He took what they did have, offered it up to God, and blessed it, and then broke it, meaning he decided to break up what he had just blessed and start giving it away. And as he was giving it away, it was multiplying. So much so that 10,000 people not only ate a little, they ate until they were full. Not only that, he had the apostles, the disciples, distribute the food. So they did not get to eat first. They ate last. But everyone that was fed ate. And there was 12 baskets full left over with bread and fish for them. So this is a principle. As you're giving away, so see yourself as the disciple of Jesus. So you need to emulate this. Take what you do have, offer it up to him, bless it, thank him for it, and then ask him who to give it to. Give a portion away. And as you give in faith and in obedience to whoever he leads you to give it to, it will be multiplied back to you. There will always be more than enough left over for you. No matter how much you give away, there will always be more than enough left over for you. If you will do this in faith, okay? I have done this myself. I've seen this work countless times. This is the truth. Now, verse 45, immediately he made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side to Bethsaida while he dismissed the crowd. After he said goodbye to them, he went away to the mountain to pray. If Jesus prayed, we need to pray. Well into the night, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone on the land. He saw them straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Very early in the morning, he came toward them, walking on the sea, and wanted to pass by them. And when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost, and cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke with them and said, "Have courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." Then he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased. I love that. They were completely astounded because they'd not understood about the loaves. Why didn't I? This is saying they were participants in the miracle, but they didn't yet understand what had actually taken place. And listen to why. It says, because their hearts were hardened. Many of us miss the supernatural because we have our hearts hardened towards the miracles and the things of God. Let us not be like these disciples at this moment. When they had crossed over, they came to shore at Gennesaret and anchored there. As they got out of the boat, people immediately recognized him. They hurried throughout that region and began to carry the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages, towns, or the country, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged him that they might just touch the end of his robe. And everyone who touched it was healed. That's Mark chapter 6. That's all for today, folks. This is Vinny Van Gogh, triple V, baby. So I'm going to be back with you tomorrow for Mark chapter 7. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something and that you are stirred up to get into the Word of God yourself and let the Spirit of God speak to you. Cheerio, friends.